What's up, everybody? Recently I posted a video on how to play some better defense, so I figured today we actually go over how to be the aggressor, how to play better offense. So we're going to go over a few keys on how to play the attack, but first, hit the subscribe button, leave a like, drop a comment down below if I've missed anything or if you have additional tips to give to the community, and let's get to it. Now, this video is primarily going to be focused on attacking enemy objectives, enemy capture points that will gain your team tickets. But plenty of the information here can be adapted into helping your team attack maybe an enemy fob that is pressuring your own defense. But regardless, the main point here is to attack an enemy objective, and that requires intel and communication that can help you effectively plan that attack. So what are some things that we need to be aware of? What do we need to know before launching that attack? So because we are going for an enemy objective, an enemy capture point, we do need to be aware of the white line, something I've talked about extensively in several different videos. This is the line that connects the objectives. It is the shortest route between those objectives. So between your defensive position and the enemy team's defensive position, you want to avoid this for an attack. And you want to avoid it because it's going to reduce the amount of resistance you may face. It also will reduce the amount of damage you may take in trying to attack an objective. It'll speed things up, and potentially, if you attack off of this white line in a different direction, maybe a flank, you may have the surprise. From an intel perspective, we also need to know where enemies just are. If they do have fobs out in the field that are not on objective, but maybe in different spots that could be other resistance to run into or another target for an attack, we need to know where those are. If you have enemies working off a rally in a specific tree line, or if you have an enemy fob that may be supplying their own attack for your defensive position, maybe it's just in a place that is inconvenient for your attack, right? So you kind of want to avoid that to reduce the amount of intel the enemy team may get, but it just affects the pathing that you may take to launch your attack. The next thing you need to be aware of, especially if you're just an infantry group, is where is enemy armor. You certainly don't want to take a logistics vehicle or a transport or even a light vehicle directly up against an IFV. So if there's a way to avoid those things and alter the path that you're going to take to the enemy position, then knowing these positions are helpful, or knowing where these vehicles are lurking, or maybe that they're in main, can be a good indicator of where you can go, where you can set up and launch your attack from. I'm very mindful when I want to launch an attack on an enemy objective and there's armor out in the field. I don't want to get in a position where we are easily outmaneuvered by an IFV, and I also don't want to get in a position where we are just stuck in a spot that we can't get out of because the IFV is able to have the advantage to just launch HE at us. And I want to reduce the chance that the enemy team has awareness of our attack. Something helpful to know is also defensive strength. This could be simple or complicated to answer. Let's start with how many enemies do we estimate are on defense? Do they have any emplacements set up, or is the objective super fobbed? Now, obviously these could go hand in hand, but they can certainly educate you on how to set up the attack. For example, if there's maybe 15 plus on the defensive point, you may need a HAB to make that attack more sustainable because perhaps a rally just isn't enough. If there's defensive emplacements, sometimes it's helpful to know where those are located or where they may be faced to get an idea of where you can actually launch your attack from. And if it's super fobbed, it goes back to the population of enemies on point. If there's just 3 enemies on a super fob, I feel pretty good about my odds running off of a rally. But if they're well entrenched with numbers, that may be a little more difficult and may require a HAB for more team support. Use this information just to decide how you need to go about the attack and what you need to make it a sustainable effort. The next thing is trying to gather where they're spawning from. Are they coming off a HAB that is directly on point, or is their fob placed nearby? You may be finding this out when you are launching the attack, but if you are able to find it out, it can help guide how you attack. Because by identifying that enemy fob and HAB placement, you reduce the chances of a tug-of-war on the objective. In pretty much every situation, when I'm attacking, I'm looking to attack the enemy fob and HAB before I try to capture the objective. I want to disrupt the enemy's team ability to hold that objective by removing their respawn capability before I launch that attack. It's going to increase the effectiveness of what we're doing, and it's also going to make it much easier to hold if we do capture the objective. So if your team is operating at somewhat of an effective level, you can typically gather this intel relatively quickly, and it can help guide your attack. Now, while this is the information that we need to gather to be able to route for the attack, to be able to plan or execute the attack, let's talk about some things or traits that you can try to carry on with your group to be able to execute. One of the first things I'll recommend is speed. The pace at which you are able to go from maybe capturing a previous objective to moving on the offensive for the next objective is critical, because the faster you go, the less time the enemy has to prepare to set up their own defenses. Whatever you can do to expedite that transition from a defense to attack is important. And additionally, The pace at which your attack is being executed can be very helpful. For example, the quickness that you're able to use to dig down an enemy radio and disable respawns slows down the enemy's ability to respond to what you have going on. The more speed, the more likelihood that you can catch the enemy team by surprise, increasing the overall effectiveness. Now, the next thing, which is equally if not more important than speed, is position. The information, communication, and intel that we gathered earlier should dictate your positioning. Where are you launching your attack from? It should also give you some guidance around how to move your squad to the objective. It starts with finding a place to put that fob, or in this case, let's use a rally. Ideally somewhere where there's cover or at least some concealment. So typically you're not going to place that in a field, nor do you really want to place a rally in a position where you have to cross a field to get to the objective. If the route from the rally to the objective itself has concealment, or it just has elements of cover, it's going to increase your ability to get to the objective in case the enemies start to turn and look at your position, especially if you're coming in off a flank. You just want to reduce what the enemies can do to prevent you from getting to the objective. In addition to the position of where you're setting up your rally, it's important to understand the position of the squad as a whole. You don't necessarily need everybody bunched up, instead spread out a little bit and cover more ground. Also, be able to cover each other in case the enemies do respond. Now, I'm going to separate a piece of positioning into multiple angles of attack. Now, this can be done a couple of different ways. I'm going to reference fire teams first, and then we're going to talk about having two different spawns set up. So for fire teams, it's pretty simple. You can break Bravo and Charlie up into two groups, and they can take different paths to attacking an objective. This could be as easy as setting up a rally pretty close to objective, and then having Bravo take one route and Charlie take another route. And just in this example, I'm applying Bravo to the northeastern side of the objective to start applying pressure, while the Charlie team moves on the southern side of Industrial. This gives you an opportunity for when enemies maybe start to engage either Charlie or Bravo, the other fire team is able to react to create crossfire. Now, the other example of multiple angles of attack is to have two different spawns. So let's say there's two squads working together. One sets up Hab on the east side, and you set up your rally on the west side of Industrial. Now, the rally is a little sketchy, so you may need to have the guys spawning on the Hab apply pressure first, get the enemy's attention moving east before you start to apply a lot of pressure from the rally. This is a very simple way for squad leads or a team to actually set up an attack that can often be really effective. The next thing is pretty critical because it applies to just about any attack you're going to do, and that is some level of stealth. Now, that can be a matter of just getting in position to get that rally down quietly. It could be a matter of having some trigger discipline, not shooting too early or too close to the rally, and instead waiting as long as you can to get into a solid position. Maybe you're attacking from those multiple angles. You need to spread out. You need to make sure everybody's where they need to be before launching in and opening fire. The more awareness you give to the enemy team about what you're doing, the more likely it is they're going to be able to counter. So consider not driving your vehicle directly onto point unless that's your intended plan. You may want to place the vehicle a little further away from objective so no one hears the engine, and then walk the rally up a little bit closer so that you, again, reduce the awareness for the enemy team. Just think about how far you can typically hear enemy engines and tires moving about. They're going to be able to hear the same thing. So probably a helicopter drop off of a fob or rally is not the most ideal strategy if you want to maintain stealth. Now, the next important thing I'm going to suggest, especially for squad leaders that are learning, is knowing when to adjust. It's not uncommon to see teams burn significant amounts of tickets just trying to attack an objective that they're not going to get, and they're not adapting or changing anything to make the situation improve. If you're working off a rally as an SL and your squad is just making no progress after a couple of waves of attempts, it's probably worth moving the rally. This is sometimes why I suggest that the SL not necessarily be a part of the first couple waves of the attack. They may need to sit back and have someone available to them in case they need to reposition, possibly with a light vehicle, to a different area and set down a new rally. Being able to evaluate whether the attack is effective or not quickly can not only boost morale, but it can improve the chances that you're not just going to waste tickets doing the same attack on repeat. It's often just a simple adjustment that can go a long way in helping your team make an effective attack. Now, we want to take the things that we know or can gather from the first part of the video and combine them with some of the traits we talked about in the second part of the video. The idea is to be able to know where the enemy positions are, know where the enemy fob is, attack it with speed, and position well to accommodate that attack. So combine what we need to know and how we need to accomplish it, and you start to get more effective attacks. Whether you're a squad lead or someone just operating within a squad, hopefully these tips can help you and your squad perform better when on the offensive. So with all that said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have any additional tips, throw them in the comments below. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, of course, and leave a like on the video, and I will catch you all next time.